and welcome to Creating Your Story of Tomorrow. My name is Eve Mosher. I am an artist who's currently based in the northeast of Scotland who has been working on climate change, creativity, and communities for about 17 years. And this workshop is building off of some of my more recent explorations around building imagination infrastructure. It's not a term that I came up with, but it is a term that I love. And the idea is that we are very good as a society about imagining our downfall. The apocalypse is portrayed by Hollywood frequently, but we're not as good at imagining an entirely different world. And we need creatives and thinkers and doers who are providing the imagination infrastructure that allows us to do just that. So this workshop is focused on building the scaffolding to allow you to create your story of tomorrow. For this workshop, you will need some materials for making marks with. You can grab a sketchbook. I grabbed crayons and a pen. Anything that's to hand. It could be the back of a pizza box or a napkin, pencils, markers, something you're comfortable making marks with. And we're going to use that to make some notes throughout the workshop to kind of play a little bit, get our creative juices flowing by making marks on paper. And we also are going to use it to write some next steps, and writing them down helps us kind of cement those ideas. So do have those materials to hand. Feel free to pause the video now if you need to collect your materials. So the journey of this workshop is actually first to take you on a meditative journey, and then to get into some imagination space, and then kind of get into the world of what's possible, hoping that that imagination sort of takes flight for us. I will, throughout the workshop, share some examples from myself and friends of the BTS Center, and you will also be invited to pause the video throughout so that you can work with your own group and in small groups and on your own time to complete some of the processes described in the workshop. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So let's begin by taking a deep breath to arrive right here where we are. We'll inhale together and a slow exhale. Just lets us all come from the outside noise to being right here in this moment together. And in fact, we are globally in a shared moment. We are at a bit of a fork in the road, a crossroads of sorts, where two paths are ahead of us. The first path is a path that continues sort of on where we're headed right now, which is continued climate catastrophes happening at an ever more increasing rate, and we will witness climate, ecological, and societal breakdown. But the other path, the path that's possible but not as well known, is a path in which we step out into our own places of courageous leadership and fearlessness in leaping into the unknown, in designing a world that we want as opposed to the world that sort of we're being told already exists. It's creating a world that we don't really know exactly what it looks like yet. The really great news is that we have this knowledge about how to create this world. It already exists within many of our communities, and probably within all of us to a certain degree. And it's a world in which we center care and justice, and we value the relationship that we have with one another and with the ecosystem around us. And if we choose to uplift and listen to the voices of Indigenous people around the world, of communities that have handed down knowledge from generation to generation, we will find many of the answers. There are also communities who are testing out new ways of living with the perspective of abundance and a focus on relationship, and we can learn from those communities as well. And at this moment, the future is unwritten. It's up to all of us every day to write that future. And so we are actually going to play a little bit this afternoon with writing some of our own future ideas and our own small stories of tomorrow that help us go on that path towards the new future or the new story of tomorrow that we don't yet know what it is. Okay, now we are going to step into our own imagination. So I'm going to ask that you make sure that you're someplace where you can close your eyes safely. If you're seated, make sure that your feet and or your seat is grounded, just somewhere where you feel like you're sort of, again, just sort of coming into this moment, and that you can close your eyes for a very short period of time so that we can take a little bit of a meditative journey. And I'm going to ask you to think about a path that is very familiar to you, something that you have been down many times. It might be a favorite place to take a walk. It might be the commute from your front door to the grocery store or to work or to school, something that's a really common walk for you. So once again, I'll have you close your eyes first, and then we'll take another deep breath to arrive in this place again. We'll inhale and exhale, and we will begin our journey. So I'll ask you to choose your mode of transport, whether it's walking or a bike or another mobility aid that's not as fast as a car, something that allows you to really notice everything on your journey. So go ahead and begin moving along your path, and you can sense the ground beneath you, whether it's through your wheels or your feet. You can tell if it's hard or soft. You can tell if it's smooth or rocky and rutted. Begin to awaken your senses and ensure that you're taking a very deliberate journey along this path. In addition to the senses of what's beneath your feet, notice what you feel as you walk. Do you feel the warmth of the sun or a cool breeze? Do you feel rain on your face? What do you feel on your skin as you walk? And awaken your other senses as well. What can you smell and what can you hear as you move along this path? Can you hear the sound of the wilderness around you or the cityscape? And which of those do you smell? Do you smell things that are blooming? Or do you smell the scents that come from the traffic or the shops? Go ahead and allow yourself to be fully in this place as you move along the path. And as you move, notice all the details of the things around you. Notice colors and shapes, how the light hits the things that you see. And notice the things that you don't usually notice. Maybe they're the spaces and places between. Maybe they're the mundane spaces. A parking lot spot or a parking spot, a planter or two, an empty wall. Can you sort of imagine all the lines that come together to create the visual image of that space and of the path that you're taking? And continue to walk down the path, taking notice of everything as you pass it. So now you can, if you'd like, turn around on your path and begin to walk back to where you started. If you want to continue walking down the path, that is fine too. You can continue to awaken your senses and notice all the spaces and places around you, those that are filled and those that are voids. If you've turned around, notice how the light hits things differently. Notice if the sound is different because the wind has changed direction or the buildings are at a different angle to where you were. Continue to sense the path beneath you. Continue to hear yourself moving along the path. And continue to look for those spaces that you normally wouldn't notice. Taking mental notes along the way of all the things you pass. And you can slowly come back to the place where you started. And as you come back to where you started on the path, you can come back to the space where we are all together. Gently wiggle your fingers and toes to help remind you of where you are. And slowly open your eyes, taking a breath if you need to come back to all of us here together. And now that you've arrived back, we will get into the portion where we will do some mark making. So gather your materials about you, and I'm going to invite you to take some notes about the journey you just took. You could write down what are the things you saw. You could write some of the other senses, but definitely noting when I asked you to kind of notice what are the spaces and places around you. You can do it through writing it. You could do it by drawing pictures, like what you saw along the path. I tend to be a mapper. I map everything. And I can share with you the map of the journey that I took, which is the path that's just outside my house. And I just did with my crayons and pens. This is my house and the neighbors and the yellow gorse along the way and some rocks on the coast, green fields, a fallen down cottage. Doesn't need to be complicated, really just for your own knowledge of this is the path that I walked and these are the things that I noticed. I will now share with you some other examples of the ways that people have also marked down their paths. So I'm going to turn it over to BTS Center staff and friends so that they can share their examples as well.
Hi, I'm Clara, and I live on Blake Street at Sophia's house in Lewiston, Maine, and I'm a member of Trinity Episcopal Church.
Hi, I'm Amy Smith, and I live at 122 Bartlett in downtown Lewiston, Maine, just 2 blocks from Clara.
And we also had Susan work on this with us, but she got called in to work at her store, which is on the map that you see, and so she can't be with us this morning. We all live or work in this area of Lewiston that's called the Tree Street neighborhood. As you see, the streets are named after trees: walnut, pine, ash. It's made up of the most ethnically and racially diverse and most economically challenged census tracts in Maine. We took a long walk in our imagination from Trinity Church at the lower right corner up to Webb's Market, which is Susan's store in the upper right.
So there's a lot going on in the neighborhood. Lewiston just secured a choice grant, which is all about creating housing choice and opportunities throughout this neighborhood. And we are very excited to, Claire and I both participate with a group called Healthy Neighborhoods, which is a coalition of nonprofits and stakeholders who are trying to look at this holistically and help everybody achieve better quality of life. So the orange areas on the map are where there are planned developments all related to this grant. The blue areas are areas that Susan at Webb's owns, and and these blue areas are ones that I own. So we're gonna have a daycare here on this corner, and I live right here. The red items are places where great things could happen. This is a corner where a lot of bad behaviors go on.
So thank you for that wonderful sharing. It's really great to see how others have noted their journeys as well. And now is a great time for you to pause the video so that you can take the time that you need to make that those notes. I was going to say mental notes, but they're not mental notes. To write down that journey that you took in whatever form you're most comfortable with. So go ahead and pause the video and do that, and I'll see you back here in just a moment. Welcome back. I hope you were able to get some nice notes taken of your journeys and share them with each other. So next we're going to do a couple of things, and I'm going to again share some examples before I have you pause the video and do your own work again. The next thing I want you to do, and you can do this kind of while I'm talking, is to look at your notes about your journey and to pick out 2 spaces in your notes that are, I call them spaces of possibility, right? So there might be spaces that you go by all the time and maybe they trigger some imagination for you already, or there's spaces that there's kind of potential, right? There's spaces in my map that are spaces of potential are this kind of tumble down cottage, the fallen down cottage, as well as there's a parking lot right here next to the local pub, but also that has access to this rocky shore. So those are 2 spaces where something could happen there. And, you know, there's just an opportunity for something to happen, right? There's maybe no other use happening there, or the use that's happening there could live alongside something else. So actually in that parking lot, that's where the recycling bins are, but other things could happen there as well. And actually some other activities do happen there, but that is still to me a bit of a site of possibility. So the next thing we're going to do is, once you have selected your site of possibility, and you can do that now or you can do it when you pause the video, we're going to jump into the wild imagination, the place where physics don't have any rules, time doesn't apply, logic maybe doesn't apply, but a place where we can get into concepts of what's impossible. And I steal this idea from my friends Steve Lambert and Steve Duncombe, who run Center for Artistic Activism. And they teach as part of a larger workshop, which is a really wonderful workshop. They teach this concept of, if we start with the possible, then we really box ourselves in. But if we start with impossible, we kind of break through a lot of the barriers that box us in and allow us then, when we consider the possible, to be a lot more creative. So when they do it, they brainstorm in a group, and it's like they're working on one problem and they come up with 7 impossible ideas. And then after they've done that work, so you have to do the impossible first. After they've done that work, then they come up with 3 possible ideas. So we're going to narrow it down for our purposes, and we're also going to kind of do it internally, but also some brainstorming with others. So come up with one impossible idea for your site of possibility. You know, for mine, maybe I'm bringing in the circus, or I'm bringing dinosaurs back to life. I actually think what I want to do is, we moved here and it's pretty far from everything, and most of my friends work in climate change, so they're not necessarily going to fly here to visit us. So I'm going to put in this tumble down cottage, I'm gonna have all the wealth in the world, right? And I'm gonna build a teleportation station. I don't even need the rockets that everybody's using right now. We're just gonna go straight for Trekkie, dematerialize, rematerialize, teleportation, so that loads of people can come see this beautiful place where I live and can come visit me, and we can just have fantastic conversations. In fact, I think I'll put a really good coffee service in too, so we can have a nice coffee while we look out at the water and enjoy our visit because they've teleported over. So I'm gonna go ahead and share again what some of the BTS friends and staff have shared for their sites of possibility, as well as their wild imagination idea, their impossible idea. And then I'll come right back and prompt you to pause the video and do your own imagining.
Well, we really need to get rid of or change Poyer's Market, and asked ourselves what could happen in that block right in the center of the neighborhood. When we let our imaginations run wild, what could we see happening there so that what was once an undesirable block of the Tree Street neighborhood is now attracting 1,000 visitors a day? One idea is a magical dome that everyone wants to come experience, and it takes you on a magical adventure. As you enter the dome and smell the pine and the cedar, it's heavenly. The sound of birds chirping and the sun shining throughout is breathtaking. Or our one and only underground roller dome, the only one in the country. All ages are welcome, and we have everything that you could imagine. Enjoy a skate underground with bright disco lights, all genres of music, and a misting station to cool you down. How about a really big circus wheel, like one in London? It runs on weekends or holidays for free. Maybe a merry-go-round too, and a circus-like training program for clowns and mimes. And those clowns begin to show up at public events and volunteer at hospitals. All of this would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for everyone. But for the Tree Street neighborhood, it's at our fingertips every single day.
So again, a huge thank you to those who shared. I love the impossible ideas. They are a lot of fun to kind of step into that space. So now's your turn to have a little bit of fun. You will be able to pause the video and find your site of possibility and think of your impossible ideas. And I highly recommend that you share and that you steal. Artists are really good at stealing ideas and remixing them and rethinking them. So don't worry about borrowing ideas from one another, building on them, shouting ideas across the room to one another. Like, have some real fun with this. Get really brainstormy. Nothing is out of the realm of possibility, right? It's the impossible things. So time travel, whatever it is you need, bring in Einstein, whatever you need to do, but have some fun with it and kind of fill those spaces with whatever you need to fill those spaces with, whatever calls to you. And I'll see you back here in a moment. Again, welcome back. I hope you had a really good time with that. I had a bit of a laugh and came up with some really impossible ideas. I'll share with you at the end of the video. We'd love to hear more about what came out for your group and your workshop. But for now, we're going to step into the possible. I mentioned that you come up with the impossible ideas to get back to the possible. So for this next part, you are going to break into, I suggest small groups. If you already have a small group, you can do it as a whole group. Sometimes it's useful to do this as like 2 or 3 people, because sometimes it can help to have an outside perspective looking in to consider your impossible idea and help you kind of get down to the root of it, the sort of value of it. So when I shared my impossible idea for my tumble down cottage, the teleportation, it was about bringing other people into the space for conversations and coffee, right? Maybe good cakes too. And then if I think about okay, how do I make something like that really possible? The root of what I'm looking to do is to build a community where there's interesting and inspiring, not only conversations happening, but things happening. So actually, I could take that tumble down cottage and I could think of, how do I build a community center that brings in people from the village to share the things they're good at, but that also help us like get towards, remember at the beginning I talked about the abundance, about building relationships with one another and with the ecosystem. So maybe the gardens around the cottage are turned into a community garden. Maybe there's a community bread oven. I love the ideas of community bread ovens. Maybe the center can bring in arts and culture. We have wonderful artists here and all up and down the Shire, and we could do upcycling classes. I bet there's people here who know how to do things with fashion or with phones. We could teach people how to fix their bikes. And these are, again, like stealing ideas. I know someone on the West Coast who's got a community hub like this. I could talk to him and bring in some of his ideas and think about, how do I build a new community here where I am here so I can have those conversations, so we can inspire one another. And of course, we'll have to have good coffee too, because I mentioned that already, and there always has to be good food and drink. So your next step is to think about what is possible from your impossible. And I want you to write down 1 or 2 real steps you could take. So you're going to share with your group, again, what was that impossible idea? What's kind of the nugget within that? That's really the thing that is possible. And then how can you start to make that happen? And it's really beautiful to do this in a group, because people might have already resources that you could tap into. I love always telling people our ideas, because they can bring other things to it. You might even attract other people to your idea who want to be a part of it. So for my first steps, there are community meetings that happen. I can go there and I can start conversations with people who live in the community to find out what do they want, right? I don't want to impose this upon anyone. And I can also start to do the work to find out, well, who owns that land? Who owns that cottage? What do I need to do to get in touch with that person? So I've got 2 steps, and I'm actually going to write those steps down in my notebook. So I want you to do the same, to sit with the group or sit with a small, a couple of other people, take that impossible idea into the possible, and what are 1 or 2 steps that you could take pretty quickly to get this started. So go ahead and pause the video again and take on that task, and I'll see you back in a moment. So welcome back for the 3rd and final time. I hope you found that kind of rejuvenating and inspiring to work with one another on these kind of next steps, and that you've written them down, because writing them down kind of makes them a little bit more concrete, and that at least some of you will actually take on some of these tasks and these next steps and make some change happen. It does take people making change for society to make change, right? There's like a whole research on, if people see someone else make change, that they're more likely to adopt that change. So we do want you to be courageous and to step into this space of leadership in this way. And another way that you can do that, the BTS Center Leadership Commons invites you to please share about your experience out to the world. Maybe you write a sermon, or you write about it in a newsletter or like a blog post, some way that you're sharing not only your idea, but your experience of this workshop. We really need to spread the information architecture. We don't need to spread that. We need to spread the imagination architecture out into the world, so that we have more and more people pushing on getting us going down that wonderful path of opportunity and excitement and creativity. So please feel free to share it out. I love the idea of putting things into op-eds, because those get read by a really diverse group of people. You can also tell a friend or a loved one. Just speaking things out loud sometimes can build our commitment. You can also send a note to the BTS Center Leadership Commons. They love to hear about your experience with the workshop and your ideas, and I will get copied into some of those, I'm sure, so that I can hear about them as well. So I just want to wrap today, first of all, with deep gratitude to everyone for taking this journey along with me. Every time I do this, it's a bit of an experiment. And I also want to recognize the moment that we're in and how complex it is and how much it can steal our focus from the things that we really want to attend to. The world is swirling and changing, and there's a lot pulling at us. But I always try to remind myself the wonderful quote that action is the antidote to despair. So doing things, making things happen can really feel regenerative to ourselves as well as to the greater community. So it helps us build that relationship with one another and with the ecosystem around us to begin to do the things that can change the world a little bit at a time. So again, thank you so much for joining me in the workshop. Will be a little bit of information at the end of the video, but good luck with everything and all the best.